Morning, everyone. I see some familiar names on the attendee list. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us today. My name is Andy Marchke. I'm the Senior Director of our Field Engineering team. And as you'll see with the agenda here, some of the highlights that we'll talk about today will include some of the Moxie Cloud Services standards and policies that we have in place, some of our certifications. We'll talk about the data migration process and what it takes to get you moved into the cloud environment. We'll discuss some of the best practices that we've seen in working with successfully transitioning some of our other customers into the cloud. Resources that are needed to help move your environment into our cloud. That's both from the Moxie side and your side. And then, of course, some of the benefits that will be available to you once you are successfully deployed in the cloud. So as we kick off the webinar, I'd like to just reinforce that Moxie is not new to the cloud. We've had customers in our cloud for more than 10 years. This is something that we continue to invest in. That is our cloud strategy so that we can offer you a scalable cloud solution that is both safe and secure. So with that, let's talk first about certifications. In general, Moxie has you covered. We've invested in security. We host some of the largest companies in the world within the Moxie cloud. We've deployed our services across a variety of different verticals, including retail, financial services, and healthcare. Our security team has delivered to the highest level of security standards, and we continue to invest in these certifications. So specifically, Moxie is ISO 27001 certified. This provides our customers with the highest level of assurance of corporate security. We have security policies in place. We conduct regular risk assessments, and all of this allows us to adapt to an ever-changing cloud market. For our healthcare customers, Moxie provides hosting environment that meets or exceeds all of the requirements of HIPAA compliance. That includes encryption for transmitted data and data at rest. For retail and other industries dealing with payment card, Moxie is PCI Level 1 certified, and we offer premium service options which comply with payment card industry data standards, once again including secure options for handling credit card data. All of our data centers are SSAE 16 SOC Type 2 compliant, and these data centers are all audited by third parties. Just a quick note, too, on GDPR. Even though there's no formal certification, Moxie is committed to general data protection regulation compliance across all of our cloud solutions. Moxie maintains internal privacy and security programs designed to ensure that GDPR compliance is completed through these internal privacy assessments. We do enforce strict data security standards and implement required policies and procedures under the direction of Moxie's Chief Security Officer. And then in addition to our own compliance, Moxie is committed to helping our customers comply with GDPR when using our services. For our cloud customers, Moxie applications natively support direct access to personal information that's stored in those applications. The direct access is designed to allow Moxie cloud customers to comply with GDPR's right-to-know requirements. So in general, from a security and certifications perspective, Moxie has you covered. Moving next to, let's talk about some of the common questions that may come up as part of the migration process. I'm sure you have general questions just out of the gate, things like, what about my data? Or what if I have customization? So these are things that we'll address as part of the conversation today. First, from a data perspective, we want to ensure there's no data loss. The key here of moving customers to the cloud is to make this as seamless and as easy as possible. We want to ensure that all of the data that you have in your system today will move to the cloud. If you require access to the data, we do have database as a service that allows you to pull out historical information, create custom reports, and so on. Again, there the key is everything that you've invested thus far in our applications will move with you to the cloud. What about customizations? So this is a good time for Moxie to come in and help review those customizations. We want to take a look at your current configuration, understand why any customizations may have been developed in the beginning, and see if they make sense to help port into the Moxie cloud. The majority of customizations certainly are supported. We want to validate those, see if anything's been addressed maybe by a product roadmap or some other possible option to help in case the need for the customization is not required. But ultimately, feel safe that if you have things in place that are business necessary, we can port customizations into the cloud. How about encryption? Everything in the Moxie cloud is encrypted. This is for all users, whether you're a customer, an agent, a supervisor, an administrator, all connections, anything with data in motion is encrypted over TLS. We also offer options for database encryption at rest. So for any transactional information, any reporting data, all of the information that's sitting in the database can also be supported encrypted. And then another common question is, do I have to be on a specific version to migrate? The short answer is no. We'll move you to the cloud regardless of the current version that you're on. The Moxie Cloud team will provide and supply all the latest updates, patches to your instance once you're moved into the Moxie Cloud. So ultimately, we'll keep you on the latest and greatest and help drive you and keep you on that moving forward. So in summary, we want to make sure that the migration process is easy and as seamless as possible for you. The experience for all users will stay the same. We typically like to move customers more in a like-for-like model, ensuring no data loss, no change in functionality, and very little impact to your end users, such as your agents, your supervisors, your administrators. So a few more details about the data migration process. I'd like to reinforce that the hard work you've invested in the Moxie solutions moves with you. We understand that recreating content is difficult, it's very time-consuming, it can be expensive. So just know that users, content, queues, all of the information that you build, it all goes with you. You don't have to do any data cleanup either. We want to make sure this process is as easy as possible. So specifically looking at things like customer history, access to prior chat or email interaction data, it all goes with you. Workflow, any of the routing rules that you've built, they all stay intact as part of the transition. Users, user permissions and profiles, there's no need to recreate any of that. They all stay as part of the platform. So really, again, trying to make this very seamless. And then finally, reporting. You'll continue to have access to the same historical reporting data, any of the historical data from a transcript perspective, et cetera, that you need access to. Because we're moving everything to the cloud, there should be no additional training required. There's no expense for onboarding your new users. Everything, again, will very much stay in a like-for-like manner as you're using it today. So another common question that comes up is, how long does the actual migration take place? So let's take a look at a sample project timeline here. This would really entail something like a medium-sized deployment that maybe has some customizations and talks about the various phases that you'll move through or transition through as a move to the cloud. For smaller deployments, certainly this could be less. For larger, more complex deployments with integration, certainly could extend the timeline. As we look at it and break it down, we do have a methodology to help you move to the cloud. 8 to 12 weeks is the norm for our migrations. As we think about each one of the phases, planning certainly very important. We want to review things like the original requirements that you have for using the application, review any of the customizations that may be in place, such as integrations, other third-party tools, but ultimately make sure that as we transition in the cloud that we're delivering the same type of functionality that you're using today. All these items above can obviously impact the migration timelines, such as updates to the website and so on. From a design perspective, we'll provision the new instance in the cloud. Moxie Cloud Services team will provide a secure FTP site for your IT folks to upload a copy of the data you're using today. The Moxie Cloud team will restore that data in the newly provisioned environment and give you a chance to provide any additional testing as needed as part of the migration process. As we think about the migration process and testing, you do have access to non-production environments. There was a step certainly in there to cover around user acceptance testing that would allow you to go in and validate that things are working exactly as they were in your on-premise instance, that matches up to what we're delivering in the cloud. Certainly functional and integration testings are all part of it. We offer things like a secure VPN connection if there's any need to connect to back office systems such as mail servers or anything else from an integration perspective. And of course, taking time to validate that the changes, any updates that need to be made on the website side of things. Then importantly, from a go-live perspective, we'll help you through any kind of cutover planning, any kind of downtime that may be needed, any freeze points within. We'll certainly come up with a rollback strategy in the event of any issues or problems that may be uncovered as part of the transition process, a nice plan to roll back if needed. We have a data transfer into a production environment, so we do also provide access to a non-production environment if that's something that you need from a business standpoint. Your users can test and validate things in an environment that does not impact production at all. And then certainly as we think about the shift into a go-live, Moxie will provide support as well as what we call hypercare during that transition period. You'll have access to our professional services team and also be introduced to a customer success manager if you've not already been introduced to one. That'll help you after go live and really ensure that that transition into the cloud is successful. So let's take a second and talk about what kinds of resources would be involved. From a Moxie perspective, you'll have access to a dedicated project manager, somebody that will overall foresee the different types of tasks and milestones that would need to take place as we go through those various phases. You'll have access to a functional analyst that'll help with any kind of training if necessary, or just general consulting as we go through these various steps. And then, of course, access to a technical analyst as we think about things like any integrations, customizations, helping to validate connectivity between the environments, or even access to things like the database as a service if you do any custom reports or need access to back office data. From your side, resources that may need to be included would be certainly folks from the business. We want to help provide tools and options for them to test and validate that the solutions are working in the cloud as expected. From an IT perspective, you'll need folks to help with that backup of the data and moving it into that secure FTP site. If there are any kind of integrations, we'll need to validate connectivities and ensure that, again, that the functions all operate as expected when moving to the cloud. And then finally, web teams for those folks that are deployed on chat, making some minor changes to the code that's on the website to point that to your new Moxie Cloud instance. So moving on, ahead of the project timeline, there's also some other things to start thinking about now. While we just previously said that the timeline for a migration is generally in the 8 to 12-week period, that's typically from contract to go live. So we want to plan a migration with little to no impact on your business. From an internal perspective, you need to keep in mind peak and freeze periods. So for those that may have holiday seasons that impact or see spikes in business, if you have things like an annual enrollment or other areas that would really impact and you'd want to avoid any kind of cutover, those are things to start thinking now from a planning perspective. While we have lots of certifications and policies that we talked about in the beginning, companies do often require a formal security review. So Moxie sales and information security teams, myself, will work with you to help validate your requirements, ensure that they align to Moxie security standards in the cloud. Moxie sales and professional services teams will also help review any customizations or non-standard configurations to ensure that those are all ported into the cloud appropriately. And then, of course, resource availability. So are your team members today, are they involved in other projects? Do we need to schedule and plan ahead of time to ensure we have the right folks available to assist with the cutover? Of course, we need to go through budgeting and legal phases. Those can obviously take some time too. The takeaway here is that we should be thinking about these steps now to ensure the timely cutover into the Moxie Cloud. So you're probably asking yourself, well, why should I move to the cloud? So Moxie is aligning to a shifting market. We see all companies making some kind of a strategy to move to the cloud. Moving to the cloud will, in general, help lower your overall operational costs. Keeping you up to date from an application perspective is a key driver for Moxie. This allows us to deliver new features, new functionality faster to your teams. Moxie Cloud team will manage all the updates, the fixes, new versions in a timely manner. This once again minimizes the amount of IT resources needed on your side to manage the applications day in and day out. From a support perspective, we know tickets close faster for cloud customers, on average about 50% faster. So Moxie Cloud team has access to the infrastructure. They can help capture logs. They can apply fixes and updates and patches and anything else that's needed to help in the event of any kind of troubleshooting. So again, a like-for-like migration will ensure minimal impact to the business and allow your IT resources to stay focused on other projects internally. So back to security for a bit. In addition to the certifications we talked about earlier, behind those certifications we have comprehensive security policies. As a cloud solution, these policies are required in order to receive those certifications. So from a cloud security perspective, we have these policies in place to help ensure that your data is protected. And these policies include physical access, so ensuring that only authorized users have access to your environment, physical checkpoints on site. We've had video surveillance, security guards at those physical data centers. From an access control perspective, we have things like strong password policies and similar items in place. We have access limited to certain Moxie Cloud Services personnel. Even folks on the support and professional services side only have partial access to your environment. It's not full access. So we're really limiting access to your environments based on the requirement or the need to know. From a logical perspective, certainly firewalls are in place, no outside access to database or back-end systems, and as we've noted a couple times, encryption is in place for all data in flight and available for data at rest. As you're thinking about single sign-on, if that's something you're utilizing today, we can support a variety of integrations to identity solutions using SAML as a standard. That obviously helps lower the overall impact to managing users and roles on the back end. And then in terms of general prevention, all of our servers are hardened to the best practices that are out in the market today. Only required ports are open, really locking down access to these solutions. We have high availability built into our virtualized infrastructure to help minimize any downtime and overall impact in the event of an outage. And then all systems are certainly protected with antivirus solutions. We have intrusion detection systems that are built in to help detect errors before they happen. So really trying to negate any kind of issues before they arise. Then lastly, Moxie has a 24/7 network operations center that monitors all aspects of your cloud infrastructure at all times. So a few more details on our physical data centers. We do have solutions available both regionally in the U.S. as well as Europe. All of our data centers meet the appropriate guidelines to ensure your data is as safe as possible. Moxie data centers are state-of-the-art. We have lots of additional controls in place. These internal and third-party assessments are performed on these environments. They're completed on a regular basis to ensure the highest level of security. We think on a day-to-day basis, backups are performed daily and all stored in the cloud. Antivirus protection in place to protect all of these servers. We use industry-leading firewalls to protect the network from exposure. And disaster recovery options are available to help provide the highest level of uptime and availability for our customers. And then once again, all of these items are monitored 24/7 through the Moxie NOC. So let's summarize a little bit. Why have other customers migrated to the cloud? Well, really, this is low risk. It is considered a like-for-like migration. We know your business, that's Moxie knows your business, and this is simply moving the solution that you use today into the Moxie cloud. It's going to reduce your overall IT resource and IT spend. You're going to keep all of the data that you have in place intact. That obviously leads to no additional training needed for your end users. So once again, really minimizing the overall impact to the business on a daily basis. We can leverage all the current investment that you've spent over the last couple of years. You'll have access to a dedicated project team and customer success managers as part of the transition who have access to your business. We've worked with you in the past, and we can help make the transition very smooth. From a migration perspective, once again reiterating that there's no loss in data. Everything moves with you. So all of the history, the transcripts, any kind of data that you've built in the past would all stay intact as part of that cloud migration. As we think of corporate securities, we have policies and certifications in place to help secure your data, ensure that everything is in a safe environment. And then finally, access to new functionality. Once you're in the cloud, we're excited to talk to you about some of our new products, our new solutions that are available to you. You can upgrade and add on these solutions when you're ready, so it really is a very seamless transition and helps you move into the Moxie cloud. So I hope that was a helpful overview. With that, we'll take a few minutes for a couple of Q&A, a couple of questions that may have come in via chat. Are there any questions that have popped in? I'll lean on Valerie for a minute.
Hey there. Yes, we have a couple that have come in, and if you all did not see my note, you can submit any questions that you have in the chat section there on the bottom right of your screen. And if we don't have time to get to them, we will reach out to you one-on-one after the session. So one question that came through was just in terms of lead time. So how much lead time would they need to get started?
To get started with the migration. Yeah, I'd say sooner the better. Yeah. So we are scheduling resources now. Our professional services team is scheduling these with our cloud team to help ensure the transition. So my advice would be to get something started as soon as you can. Let's engage with your sales team, your sales engineer team, and your customer success management team and try to figure out from a timing perspective if there are any additional approvals, any kind of a security review, all those steps we highlighted. If any of those need to take place, let's get those happening as soon as possible.
Okay, great. So that ties nicely into the next question on who they should work with at Moxie for next steps. You said their account manager, customer success manager. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. And I'd say even the person that invited you to the webinar today. So likely most of you have already engaged with someone from our customer success team or your account manager. So those are the right folks to work with. I'm sure there'll be some follow-ups after this to proactively engage and try to set some things up. But certainly we can work with you to help define the next steps and figure out where it fits in your schedules to move to the cloud.
Great. Next question, just scrolling through. In terms of updates after migration, how are updates handled in the cloud?
Yeah. So certainly if you're on-premise, some of you are aware that our professional services team is often involved in there. There may have been some costs involved. So as we think about moving into the cloud, all of those upgrades, all of the system patches, all of the cumulative updates, all of those are handled by the Moxie cloud team. So no need to involve your IT resources on the back end. It's something that we'll manage and work with you. In the event of any downtime, we'll proactively notify you and work with you to schedule that appropriately to help ensure that the upgrades are applied pretty seamlessly.
Fantastic. We have a few people asking about making sure that this content is available after the session. The recorded session and the slide deck will absolutely be available, and we'll be sharing that so that you can review anything maybe that you missed today or share with any colleagues that it would be helpful to as well. Amy, did you see any other questions come through? I think that was it. Sorry, I'm just going through another one about sharing the deck. Someone asked if they currently use channels and email, and once they make the migration, what's an approximate turnaround time to be able to then enable chat?
I'm sorry, that was somebody that uses email today and wants to enable chat? Is that the right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I think we would look at that really as let's do a like-for-like migration first. Let's get everything stable. Once you're in the cloud, it's actually very simple to turn on new channels. We can have the discussion as part of one project, but from a timeline perspective, we would typically say let's complete the migration to the cloud on email, and then we can discuss a timeline to deploy chat, keeping in mind all of those same types of things. Are there any freeze periods? Are there any kind of time frames that you're looking to have, say, chat deployed by a certain date? And we can work backwards from those dates to help move it over. But pretty flexible on some of that, too. If there's some things that we need to move quickly on, obviously we can work with you to enable it based on your timing.
Fantastic. What options do they have to access their data for ad hoc reports?
Yes, great question. So I think the key here is we think about a like-for-like migration. We really want to keep all the functionality that you have today the same in the cloud. So Moxie does offer what we call database as a service, which is accessed over a secure VPN connection into our cloud, and it allows you to create any kind of queries for custom reports that you may need today. If you're doing anything around integrations to other tools like scheduling or workforce management, we also have data extract options. So if you need a larger amount of data, we can provide data dumps and other options to help ensure that you have access to the data in the same fashion that you have access to it today on premise.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. We'll wrap just a couple of minutes early so that everybody can have their time back. Are there any changes or improvements to the email editor with the cloud-based version? Any difference in on-prem to cloud-based version in terms of the email editor?
So as part of the original migration, it will truly be like for like. So it is the same agent client that you'll have access to, the same administration tools that you'll have access to. And of course, that is based on the version that you're on. So as long as you're on the most recent version, the functionality will stay the same. But be happy to have more of a one-on-one conversation to understand if there's new functionality or any kind of issues or questions that you're having around it to see what we can do from a best practice standpoint to help through that.
Great, and we will wrap there. Thank you all so much for joining. Andy, thank you for this session. Very helpful and informative. So glad everyone was able to join us this morning or this afternoon, and we will definitely be following up with the recording to share with colleagues as well as the deck, and you will all be hearing also from your support team here at Moxie to start discussing next steps in your migration. Thank you again, Andy, and everyone that joined, and have a fantastic day.